Growing up, I was taught as a child that good behavior was one of the most important things that I could accomplish, especially in public. I was taught that children were to be seen rather than heard. That we were to say, yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, and no sir. Please and thank you were still part of the human language back then. And under no circumstances was I to throw a tantrum or argue with my parents. My own particular wants and wishes were not a part of the equation. That is not the case in this morning's reading from the first 9 verses of the 23rd chapter of the book of Job. God allows Job to give full vent to his frustrations. For the moment, anyway. Last week when we found Job sitting in the ashes in chapter 2, he responded nobly to his wife with the rhetorical question, shall we receive the good at the hand of God and not receive the bad? And the curtains closed with the words, in all this, Job did not sin with his lips. I made the comment that if we were to place Job within the Kubler-Ross 5 stages of grief, his response would have been evidence that he had progressed to the 5th and final stage of acceptance. However, this morning's text illustrates that we can bounce back and forth between stages of grief and loss. When life throws us a curveball, we may be in a place of acceptance one day and in a place of anger the next. Although Job had not sinned with his lips in chapter 2, he is coming awfully close to it in this morning's text found in chapter 23. And it's at this point that I sit up and begin to take note of the story. I really begin to enjoy the book of Job. I enjoy it because we're being treated to a picture of a very human being. I remember hearing the story of the Apostle Paul and his buddy Silas as a child. And in that story, Paul and Silas had just been given a severe beating by the magistrates for preaching the gospel of Jesus. Then they were thrown into the deepest parts of the local prison, and their feet were fastened in stocks. But in the next verse we read, about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. I remember hearing this story as a kid and thinking, oh good grief, what kind of drugs are they on? So many Bible characters like Paul and Silas are portrayed with almost superhuman qualities, but not Job. And that's why I like him so much. In last week's chapter 2 response from Job, he is saying what he is supposed to say. He is behaving himself. But by the 23rd chapter, Job is worn down. He's lost his children, he's lost his livelihood, and he's lost his health. And for the last 20 chapters, which translates into no telling how long, he has had to endure his friends' commentary and advice about his condition. And so what we have here is a very human being. Someone who maintains a sense of serenity in the face of tragedy and who says all the right words at one point, and the next time you see him, he sounds rather ridiculous as he prepares to talk some sense into the head of an imprudent deity. Job is a contradiction of emotions and desires. And so am I. Sometimes I can think things out rather clearly. And at other times, I'm an emotional mess. And it's at those times when life is spinning out of control that God seems to be the most absent. When a loved one dies, or when we are faced with a life-threatening health diagnosis, we look around and wonder where God is when we need God to be there for us. God surely must be taking a vacation, or this evil never would have happened. When we are laid off from our job, or the love of our life walks out on us, we wonder if God even cares. Because if God cared, then God wouldn't be so absent from our lives. When we helplessly watch the lives of the ones we care about spiral out of control because of their addiction issues, we call out in desperation to a God who seems to be distracted with other things.